There are voices that do not simply fill a room, they fill something inside you. They reach past every wall you have carefully built around your heart and find the part of you that still believes in wonder, in beauty, in the idea that three human beings can stand together on a stage and make the entire world feel smaller, warmer, and somehow more bearable. If you have ever sat in the dark of a concert hall with tears running quietly down your face while Piero Barone, Ignazio Boschetto, and Gianluca Ginoble sang, then you already understand why we are here. Welcome, dear friends, to this channel, to this community, and to a story about legacy that is still, gloriously, being written. It starts the way all truly important things start, in silence. Across their 2025 world tour, the moment before Il Volo sang was often described by fans as a kind of reverence, the held breath of thousands, the stilling of a crowd that had traveled from across cities and countries and, in some cases, across entire oceans, all for this. In Mexico City, where the audience filled every tier of a venue blazing with golden light, fans described the moment the trio walked onto the stage as watching something sacred take form. No announcement could have prepared them. Gianluca moved to his mark with a quiet gravity, Piero with his chin slightly lifted as though already listening for the first note inside himself, and Ignazio, always Ignazio, with that open, radiant warmth that seemed to say, "We are so glad you are here." The silence lasted only seconds. But it lasted forever. Have you ever felt music like this before, where the silence before the first note was already enough to move you to tears? When they began to sing, something extraordinary happened in the room. The sound did not merely travel through the air, it seemed to move through the walls, through the floor, through the bones of every person present. In Tokyo, during a performance of O Sole Mio, many in the audience were seen wiping tears before the second verse had even arrived. A woman in the third row pressed her hand to her chest as though trying to hold something precious in place. Beside her, a teenage girl, perhaps 17, holding her phone but forgetting entirely to record, simply closed her eyes and let the music find her. This is what Il Volo does. They do not perform at their audiences. They perform for them, with them, through a kind of giving that feels almost uncomfortably generous. It was in Buenos Aires where one of the most quietly devastating moments of the entire tour unfolded. Midway through the set, Gianluca stepped slightly apart from the others to deliver a solo passage, and the arena, thousands of people, all of them breathing, went utterly still. His voice in those bars was not large. It was not reaching for power or grandeur. It was intimate, almost conversational, the way a person speaks when they trust you completely with something tender. Viewers around the world shared how this performance stayed with them long after the applause had faded, long after they had driven home and climbed into bed and tried to sleep. That quality of vulnerability, the willingness to be small and real inside a vast and luminous space, is perhaps the single greatest lesson Il Volo offers to a new generation of artists who are watching closely, always watching. Which city's performance touched you the most? Leave it in the comments below, we would love to know where you were. The young singers who attended these concerts did not go home unchanged. Music conservatory students in Rome who attended the Palazzo Te performance in Mantua described leaving with something they struggled to name but could not stop discussing. The sense that classical music, when it lives fully in the body of the person singing it, ceases to be a discipline and becomes a conversation. Piero, who has always carried his tenor voice with a particular physical authority, the way he draws breath, the way his stillness before the high notes gathers every year in the building toward him, demonstrated something that no textbook conveys. Technique, at its finest, becomes invisible. What remains is only feeling. In Athens, the tour paused for a moment that fans described as the most quietly human of the entire journey. Between songs, Ignazio spoke to the crowd in Italian, then attempted a few words in Greek, and the delighted, tender laughter that rolled back toward the stage was the sound of thousands of people falling a little further in love. He laughed too, that full, unguarded laugh of his, and in that moment, the distance between stage and seat dissolved entirely. Many in the audience were seen reaching for each other's hands. An elderly couple near the back of the floor, who had attended every Il Volo concert in Athens since the very beginning, were photographed by nearby fans in a quiet embrace, their eyes closed, their faces full of something the photographs could almost but not quite contain. Did you feel this moment too, the one where the music stopped being a performance and became something more like a memory you were making in real time? Perhaps the most breathtaking chapter of this tour unfolded at the Temple of Concordia in Agrigento, Sicily, an ancient site where 5th-century columns catch the evening light and hold it like a gift. Il Volo performed here as the sky shifted through rose and amber and deep, darkening blue, and the audience sat not in seats but on the hillside itself, wrapped in shawls against the cooling air. When the trio sang, their voices moved out across the ruins and seemed to reach backward through centuries, as though the ancient stones recognized the sound of something honest. Young composers and singers who attended wrote afterward about leaving that hillside with a fundamentally different understanding of what music is for, not for stages, not for streaming counts, not for any metric at all, but for exactly this, for the communion between what is human and what is eternal. By the time the tour reached its emotional crescendo, a standing ovation in Chicago that went on and refused, beautifully, to end. It had become undeniable that what Il Volo is building across their career is not simply a body of recordings or a sequence of sold-out venues. It is something alive and transferable, a way of understanding what music demands of those who love it. The teachers who play their recordings on the first morning of a new school year. The parents who shushed a sleeping child to watch a live stream from half a world away. The 15-year-old baritone in a small town in Portugal who has decided, finally, to take his voice seriously, because he heard Ignazio and understood that feeling deeply is not weakness but craft. These are the true measures of Il Volo's legacy. Music, at its most honest, does not recognize borders. It does not require translation. It arrives, in Italian, in Spanish, in the wordless grammar of a perfectly held pianissimo. And it finds the exact same tender place in every human chest, regardless of what language that chest learned to speak first. Il Volo has always known this. And in carrying this knowledge so fully and so beautifully across every stage of this extraordinary tour, they have given the next generation of artists something far more enduring than technique. They have given them permission to feel without apology, to sing with everything they have, and to believe, even in a complicated and noisy world, that beauty offered generously will always find the hearts it was made for. If this journey moved something in you today, please let us hear from you. Drop a comment telling us the moment that reached you most deeply. Share this with a fellow fan who deserves to feel it too. And if you haven't yet joined this community, we would be so honored to have you. Please subscribe and ring the bell, because there is so much more of this story still to tell, and we are so glad to be telling it together.